I dare say, AI is one aspect of that, but all of us who madly use search engines, we contributed to this problem, right? So it's being conscious of your actions and what you do and how the ripple effect. So, like I said, I'm also cautiously optimistic that I can now run a large language model on a laptop, and you can sit there and crank out the same kind of stuff you thought you just had to go to some web-based service and do. All right, that laptop may run 25 watts, not burning gigawatts somewhere in some place. So it's again being conscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
It's almost like deploying the infrastructure for the usage. Like we open up the water in our houses, where like we learn to close kind of like moderate our own consumption, and the infrastructure is there to supply. And so when we are like, there's memes about like the cat drum is the best use of compute. So basically, it is like that's our house. It's on the users to kind of learn, and it's all that actually it goes to every regulation, because it seems like we want to infrastructure and the creators of the AI basically to regulate it, but it's on us and how we basically working on the balance with our kids and with our own consumption. It's on human. There's no rules besides that we can actually work on our own integrity and how we use things. And I think this is much more important question.
And it's a little bit more difficult because as human beings and as maybe, shall I say, Americans, we have difficulty with moderating our consumption.
Yes.
So it's
Not in the
it's a challenge, so let's look in the mirror. Thank you for that. So what you're doing specifically with I'm jumping to something a little bit more creative, and we talked earlier about the concentration of power and the work that you're doing with Jam. It's actually work that's done collaboratively. So I think there's a beauty in that. I would like to, I know it's coming up next. Can you talk
Yeah, I
about
think actually Doug Shapiro, I think might even be an advisor of one of my panelists. I like him a lot. I find him, he's a really great thought leader, great guy to follow. He's got a great Substack called The Mediator. But he sort of incepted in my head this really clean way that I think I'm responding to you is that, for anybody that hasn't just been following the story of Hollywood and the way we've all participated in it, before YouTube, there was one main city in America and some satellites where all distribution choices were made and all the talent would have to move to go to participate in working in that industry. And YouTube, and by some extension, streaming in general, but let's just focus on YouTube because it's the easiest thing to see its impact on. It decentralized distribution. Like the idea that I can have a talk show, like I do on Wednesdays, with our machine cinema community, and 100 of us gather to talk to people like Arvin and hopefully someday John. I didn't ask for permission to do that. I didn't, need to get a studio exec to fund my operation. I didn't need to build the infrastructure of satellites and all the things that used to be, for good reason, called centralized, a place that did all that work. So, long-winded way of saying, that unlocked a huge thing that people used to think only worked one way. And at the time, there's a lot of people who didn't like it either. These sort of moments of disruption always have a moment of somebody predicting the worst and assuming the worst, and sometimes they might be right. But for the most part, I think we can at least look at the fact that YouTube is now bigger than all of television combined. It is only growing. And it's also created tens of thousands of careers, sub-communities, sub-industries, sub-businesses that don't even live in and of themselves off of having to make movies that people go crazy. They get created a new paradigm, right? And what Doug would say is that we're watching that now happen with production, which was the other part of Hollywood's scarcity position, which is that you needed to make a movie with this animation studio, or if you really needed to know how to make sci-fi movies, you need this type of schooling to go to, these types of agents to represent you, and these types of institutions to surround your efforts to make that high-quality sci-fi movie. While we figure out the underlying copyright and make sure that things are attributed and all the things are licensed, the opportunity for some guy in Tunisia to sit at his desktop and use Google credits to make a film and then win a competition called the Billion Follower Summit in Dubai this year and win $1 million for his film, which is its own hype cycle, and we're all pumping the space. But I'm saying, nobody never heard of that guy. That guy didn't get rocked by somebody at CIA. He didn't, and he's one of thousands of people that are the early adopters that we're seeing in our communities and are coming into this space and learning and adapting with how hard it is to use this technology, how hard it is. It isn't just a slot machine, make instant, make a movie. It's like you're actually learning a new craft. So to me, it's very, very visible that dynamic is at play, that we're now decentralizing production. And we're watching a lot of stuff in Hollywood adapt to it, freak out about it, maybe sometimes be optimistic about it. It's a lot of emotions, which is, I love the title of the panel, Fear and Hype. I mean, it's emotional space. But I think while predicting the future is a fool's errand, I think looking at the pattern of that major disruption, like how much did that unlock for a bunch of people that didn't have access, didn't have permission, didn't have the support of the infrastructure to make all the things that YouTube does now. I think we're now watching that happen at scale potentially. And then we have to build a new market around it, we have to build new industries around it, we have to figure out how people are attributed, all those fun things are next. But it certainly has a pattern that as these technology and media moments collide, it unlocks a lot of opportunity. And so maybe finally answer your question. What we think is happening in our Gen Jams is there's also this perception that everybody's just a veteran filmmaker, everybody's just like this lonely internet person, and it's just getting worse. And we disagree, and I think if you participate later, we think the energy of being back together, if anything, that's the other unlock, is what is collaboration, what does humans being created together look like with this new floor that's come on what's possible.
I agree with you. It's horrible news, speaking so confidently over that. So, I wanted to add to this that what happened in CNN's posting amazing examples of movie endings, called it Fixing Childhood Trauma. It was videos, every single
diversification of how somebody gets paid, the diversification of, if you're a large company, you used to be able to in one city sell to a couple of companies and go, oh, we're good. Software companies that I know that are like, oh, we're good. But now it's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions that you need to sell to. It gets more complicated. But
I think to that point, that's why, in spite of the optimism I used to go to sleep at night around a time with so many questions, I do think this moment of unlocking so many new creators that everybody gets to contribute, that doesn't mean that there's necessarily more eyeballs and the fact that everybody's suddenly capable of doing something that's similar. That doesn't mean that certainly defies the usual laws of economics that where scarcity and supply and demand tend to dictate. So I think that's why I'm so keen on ecosystems as really, where's the innovation? Is it just making pretty things, or how do we make pretty designs of how people participate and create new opportunities for communities? And I to keep going back to YouTube, I mean, while YouTube is this success story, the big piece of information that people don't process often is if Mr. Beast is the poster child of YouTube, he loses money making content for YouTube. He spends way more money on the content production than he makes back on the basic metric of advertising. But that's because he then makes money selling snacks and selling the financial business and all the different things, because he is a fully adapted creative entrepreneur in today's creator economy, which everybody they throw around almost like a meme, but it's something to study, which is that to be creative used to be an in and of itself thing, that I will make a movie and it's valuable at the end, I will make another one and it's valuable at the end. Even Taylor Swift sells a bunch of records only to then go make the real money touring. So I'm saying that this is now the complete thought of if creativity is an exciting endeavor, the successful lifelong career comes with thinking like a business person of how does this start to adapt to other infrastructures of sustainable ecosystem and growth. And that to me is the big moment that frankly AI is even here to help us as a LLM thought partner as I'm building my business model.
We'll take a few words. I think we're almost out of time. I'd like to open it up for at least 2 minutes in a second, but go ahead, please.
So the idea, just to kind of, the initial idea of how we basically came up with this copy site was around the creators in the future right now they're already losing their kind of the basic income that they have. There's 70% of them will be probably out of financial chain, the 30% will be operators of AI. And but we still need them to train models. We need human input because the synthetic data degrading quality of the models. So basically 3 generations of synthetic data gets your quality of the model, the visual model, the elements will go down. So now we need to incentivize people to create more human content to train, and the incentivization means money in this case. So we basically creating an infrastructure where creators are still getting paid, they're still doing some work, training new models that do a better job than before, and to make sure that everybody will survive this cycle, we're basically building an infrastructure. So to just support the whole thing, so compute, creative, like the structure that pays them, and all of this kind of come along together. That's the ocean.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're running out of time. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to share? Oh, no, that's it, we're done. Thank you so much.
I do actually have a couple of questions, and anyone here on the panel could answer them. Firstly, though, I'd like to ask you a question about when you start making decisions about when we go into copyright law and AI, do you think there's going to be some core pillars involved in, for instance, artists that are for me, for instance, I'm trying to expand current bodies of work with new tools, but there are already bodies of work in and of themselves before these tools came on board. So I'm building LoRa models and things, trying to train these. Do you think that's going to have some ramifications in being able to then protect that IP because there's extra steps involved in trying to create this content?
Yeah, we can speak outside of it. Like this is exactly what we do. We create proof of creation that we work with U.S. Copyright Office. We already registered a few works with U.S. Copyright Office, so it's possible to copyright AI support by proving significant human creative involvement. So if you can do that, we can build a case for you. You can do it yourself. You can copyright AI. And it's basically the next evolution of that.
Beautiful.
Let's talk about that.
Beautiful. I have another question for you guys too. I know you guys are running. So we're talking a lot about the energy use.
So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for